A 21-year-old apparently vanished, leaving detectives with nothing to go on but hunches and theories. The best lead in this case so far is that she was kidnapped by two career criminals who mistook her for a sex worker and murdered her. However, this theory has yet to be proven, and her whereabouts remain a mystery to this day. Welcome to Without a Trace. I'm your host, Jalen. Today I have two stories to discuss with you, both involving individuals who went missing on Halloween and were never found. Every file holds a mystery. Every story deserves to be heard. These are the stories of Cindy Song and Marvin Clark. Cindy Song was born in South Korea on February 25, 1980. She lived in South Korea until 1995 when she moved to Alexandria, Virginia, to live with her aunt and uncle while attending high school. Cindy graduated from Randolph-Macon Academy in Front Royal, Virginia in 1998. From there, Cindy enrolled at Penn State as an integrative arts major. She quickly joined the Korean Undergraduate Student Association, the American Red Cross, and Advertising Club. Cindy had dreams of becoming a famous, popular, rich, and talented graphic and fashion designer. She was on track to achieve this goal, achieving good grades while holding down two part-time jobs. In 2001, Cindy was a senior who was gearing up to graduate that next spring. On Wednesday, October 31st, 2011, Cindy took a break from her studies to let loose with a couple of friends. Cindy and her two girlfriends, Stacy and Lisa, arrived at their favorite haunt dressed in costumes. Cindy was dressed as a bunny, with Lisa describing, quote, "She had bunny ears and a tail that she had bought. It was very cute. It wasn't like a sexy outfit. It was a very cute outfit. That was her thing. She was very cute. She liked to look cute." Cindy's outfit included a pink shirt with a rabbit design, a white tennis skirt, brown knee-high boots, and a red hooded jacket. The trio partied and danced the night away at Players Nightclub in State College. Once the bar closed at 2 a.m., the group stopped at a friend's house to play video games for a few hours. A few hours later, Stacy and Kim dropped Cindy off at her off-campus housing in State College. Stacy waved goodbye to Cindy and drove off. She never saw Cindy enter her apartment, and no one has seen or heard from her since. Cindy's roommate returned home later that day on November 1st from an extended trip to Philadelphia. She expected Cindy to be home because the two had made plans to catch up with each other before going out with friends. When she got home, she found the door locked from the outside and the apartment empty. Initially, she wasn't concerned about Cindy's absence because nothing was out of the ordinary. It wasn't until Cindy failed to show up for a shift at one of her jobs and couldn't be reached by her friends that her friends became concerned. Cindy was reported missing on November 4th. Cindy's apartment was searched a few days after her disappearance, but it showed no sign of any struggle. Stacy remarked there were some interesting clues, saying, quote, "We found her eyelashes on the counter because she was wearing fake eyelashes, so we knew she must have come in and at least taken those off. And her backpack was in her room as well, which she had been carrying earlier. So we knew she at least came in and dropped that off. Her cell phone was still in her bag, which her friends found very strange as Cindy never went anywhere without it." It seemed Cindy had left her apartment voluntarily, locking the door from the outside on her way out. According to her friends, it wasn't unusual for Cindy to run out to a nearby 24-hour market late at night, and it is believed this is what Cindy was doing on the morning of November 1st, 2001. Cindy was known to have an independent streak and liked to be spontaneous, but her friends knew running off on a whim was not something she would do. They believed foul play was involved. Authorities were also skeptical of the idea that she had simply disappeared on her own. When searching her apartment, law enforcement found 2 tickets to an upcoming Britney Spears concert, as well as a receipt for a new computer that was scheduled to be delivered on November 6th. Overall, Cindy seemed to be content and excited about what the future held for her. She had already enrolled in classes for her last semester of school. Cindy's bunny costume was not found. Brian Sprinkle, a detective for the Ferguson Township Police Department at the time, said, quote, "We know that whenever she left the apartment, she was wearing the clothes she had on that night. We also know that her purse, her pocketbook, or whatever she had with her that evening that contained a driver's license and credit cards were with her too, because we were not able to locate those in the apartment." Cindy's phone records were checked, but there were no calls in or out. Her credit cards had no activity, nor did her email account. There were no clues as to her disappearance. Detective Sprinkle stated, quote, "We have no body, we have no crime scene, and we have no actual crime. So it's been very frustrating without any of those pieces of the puzzle. And because of that, it seems like she just vanished in thin air." A few days later, police and volunteers gathered to search the wooded area near Penn State University. Bloodhounds were used to try to track Cindy's scent. However, no trace of her was found. Authorities were stumped and had nothing to go on but hunches and theories. On December 5th, 2001, 35 days after Cindy was last seen, a chilling scene reportedly unfolded in Philadelphia's Chinatown district, nearly 200 miles from Cindy's apartment. A woman matching Cindy's description was seen crying and yelling for help. A witness attempted to help, but was chased away by a man who warned her to mind her own business. The eyewitness later came forward with the description of the alleged abductor. A police artist created a composite drawing of a man with olive to light brown complexion and medium-length hair. The man is not a suspect, but police would like to question him. Police have remained skeptical of this sighting because the witness has changed her story several times. Leads were going cold and tips weren't coming in. Desperate for answers, a Penn State paranormal group brought in a psychic from California to try and divine what fate had befallen Cindy. It wasn't until mid-2003 that police received a promising lead. In June of 2003, a murderer and informant named Paul Weekly shocked police with a chilling story about two career criminals, Hugo Selensky and Michael Kurwowski. Paul told police the men had abducted a woman who they believed to be a sex worker from State College. The two men had taken her to Hugo's house, where they kept her in a walk-in vault until she died. The woman Paul described matched Cindy's description. Paul went on to say that Hugo killed Michael because he kept Cindy's bunny ears as a trophy, and this angered Hugo. He alleged Hugo was responsible for murdering at least 16 individuals. Law enforcement were unable to question Michael as he had disappeared along with his girlfriend Tammy in May of 2002. Police searched Hugo's residence and made a grim discovery: the charred remains of multiple bodies burned in his yard. Cindy's body was not among those found, but Michael and his girlfriend Tammy's were. The discovery of Michael's body meant the investigators hit a dead end with their search for Cindy. Authorities believed Paul because several other things that he said proved to be true. Hugo admitted to abducting Cindy, but told investigators that Michael was the one that killed her and kept her bunny ears she was wearing as a souvenir. He and Michael had mistaken Cindy for a sex worker and kidnapped her. He said Cindy's body was buried in Luzerne County in Pennsylvania. Law enforcement were unable to prove Hugo's involvement in Cindy's disappearance. He was never charged with anything relating to her disappearance. Despite this, he has not been ruled out as a suspect. Of this tip, Detective Sprinkle said, quote, "This has given us a little hope here in this case. It has been our best lead, and we're going to follow up until we disprove it or prove it." Authorities continue working on the theory that Cindy had been abducted. However, they have no facts to back it up. An Oregonian man mysteriously vanished while en route to visit his daughter over the Halloween weekend in 1926. An accidental discovery made decades later only proved to add another layer of mystery to what's become one of the oldest unsolved missing person cases in the United States. Marvin Clark was born around 1952 in Marion County, Iowa, to parents originally from New York. Marvin was described as a highly educated man, having graduated from 2 universities. He moved to Oregon with his wife Mary and their 4 children as early as 1910, where he worked as a sheriff in Linton. Marvin is described as adventurous by family members and was a well-known resident of Tigard, as he had lived there for 15 years at the time of his disappearance. On Saturday, October 30th, 1926, around 1 p.m., the 69-year-old man left his home in Tigard, Oregon, and boarded a stagecoach to visit his daughter Sydney in northwest Portland, Oregon, just 10 miles away from his hometown. Marvin never arrived to meet his daughter, and family members hadn't made contact with him that day. Sydney was unaware that her father planned on visiting, and the family realized he had gone missing on November 6th when Mary called Sydney to ask when Marvin planned on returning home. Relatives began a frantic search for him, with his daughter Sydney offering a $100 reward for information leading to his discovery. At the time of his disappearance, Marvin stood at 5 foot 8 inches tall, suffered paralysis, and did not have full use of his right arm, and walked with a limp. These details police hoped would elicit sightings of him. Marvin was last seen embarking on a stagecoach to Portland, and witnesses claimed to see Marvin on a bus terminal in Portland on the day of his disappearance. On November 9th, Marvin's wife Mary received a postcard from Bellingham, Washington, reportedly written by her husband. The letter in the postcard was reportedly jumbled, despite the fact that Marvin was highly educated. Witnesses claimed to see Marvin in Bellingham, Washington between November 2nd and 3rd. Just to note, Bellingham is more than 260 miles from Portland, which would have made for a long trip in the 1920s. The case went cold and remained that way until 1986, when loggers discovered a complete human skeleton in a wooded area between Portland and Tigard. Several mementos from the late 19th and 20th century were found near the body, including an 1888 Liberty head nickel, a 1919 penny, a pocket watch, leather shoes, and a Fraternal Order of Eagles pocket knife. Detectives also located a .38 revolver and a spent shell near the remains. An autopsy revealed a bullet hole in the man's skull, and the death was ruled a suicide. Several days later, Marvin's granddaughter, Dorothy, came forward suspecting that John Doe may have been her missing grandfather, but no identification could be made before her death in 1991. In 2018, Marvin's great-great-granddaughter, Pam, provided her DNA sample to determine if the 1986 John Doe was Marvin. Through this DNA, it was determined the remains were not Marvin's. Pam told a local news station, quote, "I wonder who he was and why he left, or was there some sort of foul play, or why did he leave the family and not come back again?" Police are hopeful Marvin's case will be solved in the future, saying, quote, "If at any point in the future bones are sent in and it's Marvin's, we will get a positive identification. And who's to say he won't get found by a hunter or a landscaper or developer or something like that? So there's a chance he could be found. Currently, Marvin Clark's whereabouts remain unknown." Thank you for listening to Without a Trace with your host, Jolyn. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the disappearances of Cindy Song and Marvin Clark. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and follow us on social media. Join me next week as I dive into another case.